Hello, welcome to Lawana's Urban Voices. Apologies for the last 5 days. I was on vacation and it was lovely just to get a break from everything and let my mind breathe. But when I was on vacation, the story came up of a beauty queen in South Georgia who was dating a man who had custody of his little boy who was about 18 months old. They've been dating for almost a year. The boyfriend had admitted that the relationship was a little not great, but they were, making it work. She had been around his son. He has custody of his 18-month-old son. She'd been around his son. So, um, last week during the freeze that was pretty much happening through the South, he decided to go out and get them something to eat, ordered a pizza or whatever, and he left the baby at home with the girlfriend so that he wouldn't have to take the baby out in the cold weather. He said he thought he might have been gone 20, 30 minutes max to go get, to run to the store and go to get the pizza. When he got back, his, his son was, um, hurt, severely hurt. She said he fell off the couch. They rushed him to the hospital in this little South Georgia town, and the doctors are like, "Look, we're not prepared to deal with this pediatric emergency. We need to get this baby to the Children's Hospital in Atlanta. We're going to call a helicopter. We're going to airlift this child because he needs more help than this little rural hospital could give him." So the airlift um, EMS people show up, and normally with airlift, they have like a nurse practitioner. They have, all of the EMS people, pilot, everything, and their um, helicopter is really equipped to deal with severe cases that need to be airlifted that can't wait to go by the normal transportation. So they get there, and by this time, the baby has no brain response. He is bleeding in well, he got his brain, his skull is crushed. He's bleeding in his brain. He's drowning with the blood that's in his lungs. Blood in his lungs is causing this baby to drown. They say they can't airlift him because he's not going to make it. There's no way, even from the South Georgia to Atlanta, they're like, this baby was gonna pass out or pass away in the helicopter. He's not gonna make it. His injuries are that severe. The only person with him at the time he suffered these severe injuries was the girlfriend. The dad left his girlfriend with his son so he could go get them something to eat. And in a matter of 20, 30 minutes, his son is dead. They did arrest the girl and they're charging her with murder, um, endangerment to a child, assault. I mean, they're charging her with some crimes or whatever. But can you imagine? We always talk about women making good choices when it comes to dating men because we hear about how many of these women's boyfriends attack their children, sexually assault them, kill them, beat them. So we're always telling women make better choices when you're dating when it comes to having these men around your children, especially if they're not the father. And then you still have to be careful if you pick the wrong father. So we're always telling women about this, always, you know, telling women, getting on women, make better choices. Don't put your kids in that situation. Now, here's this young dad. Him and his sister, the little boy's mom was not involved. She pretty much was like, "Bah, I'm gone." So him and his sister had been raising his son. Um, he wanted to do the right thing. He wanted to be a dad to his son, and his sister was there to help him. You know, the extended family, it takes a village. And because of his choice in girlfriends, and by his own admission, it wasn't. she was not the best girlfriend. As a matter of fact, it turned out that she never even told her family that she was dating this guy, and they had been dating for almost a year. So it wasn't like she was somebody he had known for a couple of months. He had almost known her a year and had been dating her a year, and she's been around his child. And she actually killed his son. Um, and it's like when you're a single parent with kids, you have to be so extremely careful who you have around your kids. Family members, non-family members, school coaches, you have to be so particular who you have around your kids because kids have become fair game to this society we live in. It's unbelievable that anybody would have a reason to inflict such um injuries on an 18 month old child that he dies. Do you understand how severe this baby's injuries were? That he's bleeding and drowning from the blood in his lungs, that he had no brain activity, that his skull was crushed. What could and don't get me wrong, I have 3 kids. And I know that toddler stage when you're trying to potty train and um they're not really talking and they're still whining. It's a lot, but not enough for you to kill your child, crush his skull. Um, Whatever injuries she inflicted on this child, he drowned with from the blood in his lungs. Your lungs don't have blood in them. So what kind of that tells you how bad the injuries were. Now this young man, which I'm not totally in agreement with, has got a GoFundMe page to help cover the hospital bills and the funeral and things like that. Um, I'm not a big fan of the GoFundMe pages because I think a lot of people misuse those GoFundMe pages. So, not necessarily my biggest, I'm not a big fan of that, but I'm also just, I can't imagine this young man's pain that he's going through right now, trying to do the right thing, trying to be a good dad, um, hoping to date someone who would love his son as her own and pick the wrong girl. Guys, girls, when you guys are dating and you have children, and when you're dating, you don't have children, be careful, be particular, be cautious of who you date. Because when you see the red flags, you see the toxic traits, we have to start paying attention to those things because a lot of times we let things slide because we are infatuated or we're beginning to fall in love or we're hoping that that their personality is going to get better or that they change. So we tend to overlook so many we tend to overlook so many crucial signs just so that we can have that ideal relationship, that ideal family, that ideal, um, I guess, that bond that we all are looking for. That sometimes we overlook those things that we should not overlook. I, my heart goes out to this young man, his 18 month, and he was a beautiful little boy. And this young lady who killed him just so happened to be a beauty queen for the city she lived in. She was their beauty queen. She was going on to represent them for the Miss Georgia title. And here she is now going to jail. I think she's 19 and she's going to be going to jail. For how long? I don't know. My opinion, she needs to be in jail for the rest of her life. She needs to be sterilized right away because she never needs to have kids because it's obvious she doesn't know how to be around kids. It's obvious she doesn't really like kids. She needs to be sterilized so she doesn't have a possibility of making kids. And she basically needs to be in jail for pretty much the rest of her life. That's the injuries she inflicted on this child are so bad that I would be very upset if she got to see the light of day. I mean, totally upset. And I think that um as a woman who was single with 3 kids, who didn't necessarily I did not, there's not even know this, I didn't pick the best dads for my kids. My fault, my fault alone. Why I did not, I don't know. Um, but I did not pick great dads for my kids. So my kids grew up with a single mom. And as much as I love my kids and I tried my best, I only met one man that might have been worthy to be a stepfather to my kids. I didn't marry him because he was a good guy. And for whatever reason, that's not what I was looking for. So I didn't marry the good guy who could have been a good influence on my kids. Instead, I just was a single mom, dated off and on, but nothing ever serious. And that was it. So I am speaking from experience to women. Make better choices. I wish I could have turned back the hands of time and made better choices so that my children could have grew up with a positive male role model or could have grew up with their dad or I could have picked the right man to be their dads. I want the same kids. I just wish I would have picked a better dad for them so they could have had the opportunity to grow up in a two-parent household. But I didn't. But I also was very cautious about who I brought around my kids because I didn't want um, a bunch of different people around my kids, and I didn't know if any of them were, going to be around long enough to make an impression. So I just didn't. I just didn't date a lot because I it just wasn't. I don't know. I just felt like I didn't know how to pick a good man, and to this day, I still feel like that. I feel like as a woman, as women, we try to pick good men or we think we're picking good men, but sometimes we don't know. And if we find one, do we know that he's a good man? We're so used to toxic men. We're so used to being mistreated in relationships that when we meet somebody who treats us well, sometimes we don't get it. And I say that because when a man picks you up for a date and it's your first date and you guys are getting to know each other and he takes you to the cheesecake factory or to the Olive Garden and you pitch a fit because you think you're better than that and you want some man to take you out to dinner and spend $300-400 on a dinner when he just met you, the guy who he could have been a great guy. He took you to the Olive Garden to see what type of person you were, what type of personality you had. Um, some women would have appreciated a day to the Olive Garden just to sit down, talk. Olive Garden has good wine, they have good food, they have unlimited salad, and their salad is really good. I mean, it would have been a really nice date, but then some women don't appreciate that. And as women, we have these standards that we want a man that makes 6 to 7 figures, and then we come to the table and we make 4 5 figures, but it doesn't matter because we're like, we shouldn't have to worry about it. My money's my money, his money should be our money. It doesn't work that way. Um, and as I get older and I'm starting to be more mature, I'm starting to realize that relationships are a partnership. And the most successful relationships are the relationships where the man and woman are friends, they like each other, and they work together. When I look at my friends and colleagues who've been married for 20, 30 years, my cousins who've been married for 20 and 30 years, and I sit down and I ask them, how is it that you were married to the same person for 30 plus years? And they tell me, because I like them, they're my best friend, we have mutual respect for each other, and we look out for each other. We both have each other's best interest at heart. My cousin knew that his wife knows that his wife has got his best interest. Even if they argue, they're still best friends. Even if they don't agree, they still respect each other. Even if um, they're having bad moments, they know when to give each other a break, and they know when to be there to support each other. I look at some of my cousins in these long-term relationships. They're all getting older now, and they've been, like I said, they've been together 30 plus years. They're all much older. They're so happy. Like, you can see the love that they still have for each other after 30 something years of marriage. And one of my cousins, she said, um, actually, she married my cousin. She, his wife, so she's my, I guess, cousin-in-law. But anyway, she said, "Oh, I didn't always get along with your cousin. Sometimes he got on my nerves, but in the situation at the time where he got on my nerves, also was a little bump in the road of all the times he was the best person I've ever met." So yes, there was times we didn't get along. There was times we were mad at each other. There was times we argued with each other. But at the end of the day, they had that mutual love. And I think when you are a single parent and you don't want to be single and you do want to meet the right person so you can have that everlasting love, that sometimes you turn a blind eye to the traits that are toxic, to the red flags, to the behaviors, to the personalities, to the way they speak to you or the way they treat you. We tend to overlook those things in order to have the relationship that we want. And we can't do that anymore, especially when children are involved. So, like I said, my heart goes out to this young man who lost his son, who's dealing with that. So, I mean, this is the beginning of the new year. His son was 18 months old. So, that meant that he was having a birthday this year. He would have been the big 2-0, the big 2-0, the big 0-2. He would have been 2 years old this year. And now he's having to bury his son. And if you've never been to a child's funeral, that is the worst funeral to ever attend. It's the worst. I've only been to one, and it was devastating and heartbreaking, and it was absolutely horrible. So just keep that family in prayer and that young man to get strength, because I can't imagine the guilt that he feels, the guilt that he feels for leaving his son with this girl who was supposed to be someone he was probably starting to love, maybe already loved, and was hoping to build a family with her, who now destroyed his family and her own life. And I think she should stay in jail for the rest of her life. And sterilization, she should be sterilized. She should never be allowed to have kids ever. She doesn't deserve the right to ever be a mother after what she did to this baby. Those are just my thoughts. Those are just my opinions. Um, Thank you guys for tuning in to Lawana's Urban Voices. Also, thank you for the comments. Thank you for the likes. Thank you guys for everything. I really do appreciate it. As always, when you see the podcast, please with the video, can you please refer a friend? You know, I would like to get more opinions and the diversity of hearing what other people have to say. So yes, that's that's today. And I shall talk to you guys again tomorrow. As always, thank you for tuning in to Lawana's Urban Voices. I truly appreciate it. And you guys go off and have a lovely Tuesday. Bye.